The little spots all over my arms are dead bugs, but not on my arm. It's on the windshield because there's a light right up there. And that's the reason why I'm leaning forward. Figured that I might as well be the light for once when I'm inside of the truck. Now, I'm currently at the same place I was last week. And I actually recorded last week's episode yesterday. But it's, I took good notes. That way I'd have a chance to actually talk about it. But I tell you, it's been crazy the past couple of weeks. More personally than anything. But anyway, just to finish up about the dead bugs, it's kind of funny because the rain there's been a lot of torrential downpours lately, and the rain will smack the windows, and the windshield wipers will clear off the bugs with the rain. But as soon as the rain stops, the bugs smack into the windows again. And I remember about a year ago when I was driving through Wyoming, and it was warm or warmish for Wyoming, which was like in the 60s. Bugs were smacking into the windows, and it was like a bug would smack into the windows, then another bug would smack into that, and it wouldn't go completely into a splatter. It would retain its shape. So as soon as I stopped and shut down for a 34 in Gillette, Wyoming, yellow jackets were coming over and eating the splat bugs off the window. It was kind of funny. But that's not going to happen tonight. As of the time of this recording, it is early in the morning on Labor Day. It is currently 3:39 a.m. on Labor Day, 2024. And you may say, 3:39 a.m., well, where are you? If you're in the truck, well, I'm at a neighborhood market. And this neighborhood market has a noise ordinance that does not allow any deliveries before 6 a.m. But I will get there. I will get there soon enough. Now, let me explain a couple of things first up. There are some kind of, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, the new stickers. Well, the new stickers have officially been on for a couple of, months or whatever. And only Sam's Clubs are able to scan them. But eventually they'll be able to. There was a couple of updates on the stickers this week. One of them was that instead of the stickers being put flat onto the plastic and some random place on the side of the pallet that's stacked, they're starting to put the stickers more often on corners. The stickers have two barcodes on them, and they have the pallet number on them. So if they wrap it around, like they take the sticker and there's the corner, and they wrap it around the corner like this, you can see the barcode and the sticker number from both sides, this side and this side. So there's a 50-50 chance you'll be able to see the pallet from someplace in the front or the side or whatever. So I just want to make that as a reference real quick, because that's new. Being that only Sam's Clubs can scan them, going to Walmart and stuff like this still means tearing off a chunk of the sticker, and it's not this little bitty thin thing anymore that's like as wide as my thumb and about that long. Now, in order to get to the actual number, you have to tear off a big old huge square and keep on tearing it until you get to just the number, and it's big. And it doesn't have the store number or anything like that unless you tear off a chunk like that big, or even bigger, depending on which side of the sticker you pull off on. Additionally, this week they started in the DC, they started doing something different with the stickers. As opposed to sticking them on plastic, they started sticking them on cardboard. The cardboard boxes are the things underneath it, and that is annoying because when you're trying to pull off the stickers, it pulls up the cardboard and therefore loses a lot of the stickiness. So, that's fun. Anyway, let's go over this week. I should also mention that I decided I was going to try something this week, and I do like it. The reefer currently behind me is shut down, and part of the reason is because of this noise ordinance. When I was stopped here last night, there was a sheriff that drove through about once an hour, probably to double check the noise ordinance to make sure that no truck is back there, because I've been told by the office that trucks have been known to get ticketed if they are here. I guess back there, which is not allowed. There are cones going right across there, stopping anybody from going back there. And the sign says no trucks are allowed back there until 6:15 a.m., but the noise ordinance stops at 6. So at 6 a.m. or 5:59, I will move all those cones, and at 6, I will crank up the engine and go in there. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I have the reefer in cycle mode right now, so it is currently off, maintaining its temperature. We're supposed to leave it in continuous mode or cycle sentry if it's on the if it's a carrier, it's start stop mode. If it's a Thermo King, it's cycle sentry. Basically what that means is it would start, and then once it hits its the temperature it's set for, it will shut itself off and just let the insulation keep it cool on the inside, as opposed to continuous mode where it just constantly runs and puts out, temperature, matching the temperature it's supposed to be. So if it's set for 32 degrees or whatever, which is a new norm. When they started doing the new stickers last week, 2 weeks ago when we got the new computer system, they started changing the meat and produce. Produce still is sent out at a temperature of 40 degrees. Meat used to be set to 30 degrees, but now it's set to 32. I have no idea why they changed it. So it's now set to 32 on the trailers. And that's not a huge deal. I mean, it's still going to be, I don't want to say frozen, but it's frozen enough. I mean, 30 degrees would make sure that it's going to be moving at 30, which is below freezing. 32 means it would be moving pretty much around 30. And the temperature doesn't just go down to 32 degrees. It would be like fluctuating. You'll be close to 35, 36, something like that, within an error of within a margin of error, I guess, so plus or minus a little bit. But one of the things I started doing is when you first pick up the trailer, one of the things you see is that the trailer is always set to cycle mode, cycle sentry or start stop. And we're supposed to turn it into continuous mode. What I have been doing this week is not doing that until I get out of the truck at the first stop. Because if you get to a stop and you open up the trailer, all that air goes right out of the trailer and it doesn't stay cold. As soon as you close up the back of the trailer again, it will start building up start cooling down again. But if you leave it in continuous mode, it is constantly keeping the trailer cool. And if you don't, then it's going to drop to a certain degree, or it's going to raise to a certain degree. And then the thermostat will tell the cooler to kick engage. So as we're unloading, you'll turn on, but it sometimes doesn't. And it will rise up like 20 degrees on the inside, sometimes 30. So by doing this, what I'm doing is saving the fuel by letting it just sit there idle and cool. But as soon as I go inside my first stop of the night, I turn it into a continuous mode. That way, as soon as we open up the trailer, it's going to be blowing out the cold air. If I have a long drive after that, as soon as the trailer is closed again, I will turn it back to start stop mode. That way I'm saving fuel. I've been doing this week, and I think I like it. It's saving, it's saving the planet. It's saving, gas. Or not gas, diesel, because what it's doing basically is it's maintaining its cool because of the insulation on the inside of the reefer. So I think I like that, and I'm going to continue to do it. On Monday, I had no truck assignment. When I got my when I went to sleep and I woke up at sometime in the early afternoon, no truck assignment. And there was a situation where I live in a town about an hour away from my family and my partner. The family lives with my partner. And anytime I'm off, I go to visit her and stay with them. But because my partner's been out this week, I have gone and stayed with the kids. So I will sleep during the day while they're at school or doing their thing. And then I will leave for work. I'll see them a little bit and then I'll leave and come back early in the morning. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is because it's a little bit of a longer drive. It's about, as opposed to about 25 minutes in no traffic, 25 to 30 minutes normally on average where I normally live to the DC. Now it's closer to an hour. On the weekend, it's closer to 45 minutes to 50 minutes because there's no traffic. So it basically doubles my distance. Now, this is important because I normally go into work sometime between about 4:30 and 6. My official PTA, projected time of arrival, every day is going to be 6 p.m. But I normally show up early because if my load is ready, I go ahead and leave with it early. That way I can get back early and hopefully get my second load early and then get back early. That also gives me a fighting chance, a better chance of not being at a store right in the 2 o'clock hour when they're going to be breaking for lunch. Hopefully I can get there before they break for lunch. If you get there a minute after, most of these locations are like, well, I can't do this. You're going to be waiting. Some of them will make you wait. Some of them will say, oh, okay, I'll jump back off the clock. Or they'll say, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to get my lunch. Some of them will continue to work through lunch and there is no lunch, but it kind of depends on the location. But I had no truck assignment. If you don't have a truck assignment in the app, any workloads that you get do not show up because it has to send to the truck. And if you have no truck assignment, it's going to be like, well, if you don't have a truck to drive, how could you do a load? So we're not going to bother sending it to you. So anyway, I called about 3 o'clock and said, hey, what is my truck number? Is there a truck that I'm going to be in? And they said, oh yeah, you're going to be in. And then they told me my favorite truck. So I've been in my favorite truck this week. And that's good. I love this truck. Now, they could not assign me the truck just yet because it was still out. The person was still using it. So he says, as soon as this guy comes back in, you'll have it tonight, but they'll come back in. And as soon as they come back in and check in, we will assign you this truck. So that's when you'll get your trailer. And so I said, okay, can you at least give me the trailer number I'm going to be in? And, it wasn't ready. It wasn't ready. But I went ahead and had it on out because they were doing okay on loading. So anyway, I got there. I went ahead and arrived by about 4:30. Trailer still wasn't ready. Found out what it was. So it was going to be on the dock. So it's not like, normally I drive into the DC and if my trailer is ready, I'll drive in my car around, find the trailer. That way, once I pre-trip the truck, I can go straight to the trailer and know exactly where it is. I'm not hunting for it in the trailer while I am logged in. That way I'm finding the trailer before I'm logged in. Anyway, I went ahead and pre-tripped the truck and got myself ready. And this is when I realized that because I had left to go to my family and kind of abruptly, I didn't have my normal bag with me. My bag is right here. It has all my stuff in it that I normally keep in it. It has my clipboard, it has my strap, it has it basically has everything I need for work. It has my lock, it has, my charging cable for my device. It has everything I basically need for the day, including my snacks, my food. So when I didn't have this, I was like, oh, goody, that's awesome. I didn't have that. So when I went into the office, I said, can I borrow? There goes the reefer cycling up. So it'll be up there for, a couple minutes or whatever. Once it hits the temperature, it will cycle itself down. But in the meantime, we get to listen to it. Awesome. So anyway, I ended up, the fleet manager, none of the people in the office actually had a lock with a key. So luckily a mentor walked in and I greeted him. I didn't know him until they introduced me to him, but I asked if I could borrow his lock and then I would return it back because he was just coming in for the day. He said, sure, I'll let you borrow a lock. And then I left it on the fleet manager's desk, which is where he told me to leave it. So I did that. And so at least I was able to head out there. I also, since I would talk about the fleet manager, I might as well mention this. You remember, if you've been watching this channel, you know that about 3 months ago or so, 2-3 months ago, I was driving from Blue Ridge, Georgia, up to Knoxville, Tennessee. Driving up through the back roads, it was right after a snowstorm. It was right after a storm. And there was a branch that looks like one of these tree branches that has little light, leaves on it. It looks like a light branch like that. And it was not, you know how there's normally the trees and bushes and stuff, or the trees that you drive through, they're cut like this to about, I guess, 14, 15 feet over the road. But this branch had cut. This branch, I should say, not had cut, it had fallen. So it was down at a little bit lower of an angle because of the storm. And you could not tell, as you're wiggling around through the roads, you could not tell that there was a log about this big in it, because the branch wasn't just this little light, like little branches like my fingernails. It was a big honking thing. So when I drove through it, I hear a big loud thud, and it's right up there, literally on this truck, right up there. It broke the fiberglass a little bit. Anyway, I did the right thing. I reported it to the company's risk department, and told them about it so that way they could look at it and potentially get it fixed, because I did not want it to get rain inside of the top part of the truck. Ends up being, the company doesn't care. I guess it wasn't deep enough. It's cosmetic, I guess, but it didn't break through anything deep enough. So they never bothered to repair it. Now, when I called the risk department, they actually called me back a couple of days later, and that's when they had the discussion with me about, well, this doesn't sound like it's preventable. And I said, well, I would hope not. I really hope it's not considered a preventable thing, because it looked to me like leaves. But when I drove through it, it went thud. There goes the reefer. It just shut off. So now it's maintaining its temperature. So I heard back from the risk department, or actually I didn't hear back from the risk department. They said they were going to make the determination and call me back. I talked to the fleet manager though and said, hey, can you tell me how many internal company points, not points on your license, but you start with Martin with 12 points. And as you hit things or get preventables or whatever, those points go down. And the longer you drive for the company, the more you will accrue a little bit more, like 13, 14. I think it caps at 15. I could be mistaken. But anyway, so I asked him if that counted as a preventable or non-preventable. He looked it up, non-preventable. So I still have 12 points, which is good, because it should have been. There was no way that little wispy branches that look like any branch on any little tree, like the little wispy things that you just push out of the way, because I didn't figure I'd be the first truck going through there that would have run into them. Apparently, I was, because it went thud, and it was, even though I was only going like 20, 25 miles an hour, I was wiggling through the back roads. And what am I supposed to do? Go into the oncoming lane on a mountain, blind, and then do that? No, you got to stay in your lane. You got to play things safe, even though it's in the middle of the night and you could see headlights coming. You still got to play it by the rules. You still got to be safe. And I did, and therefore it was non-preventable. They watched the video. When it happened, I got the timestamp, informed the risk department, and that's when they went and looked it up. So I looked down, saw the timestamp, or saw what the time was on the truck. And then when I talked to the risk department, I gave them that time so they could look at the timestamp on the video and look it up. And they determined it was non-preventable. Good. Enough about this. Moving on. Anyway, so female planners. It was the female planner's last day, the one that I got along great with. She left. Luckily, she is being replaced by someone that was a daytime dispatcher that I get along great with. He knows I don't waste any time. He knows the kind of loads I like. I get along great with him. So both planners, I think, since I've been coming at 6 p.m. as opposed to 7 p.m., have been scheduling me a shorter first load most days and then a longer second run, which I really appreciate, because it means that I get back usually well before I normally would. I'm not trying to rush and get a longer load done and then get back to the office and then have to rush and hope and pray that I'm first in line to get to one of these Sam's Club 4 a.m. stores. They send me on a noise ordinance run, and then when I'm done with that, I get a longer run, and then the only thing I have to worry about is, the 15 to 20% of the time I would show up at a place that happens to be sending people to lunch at 2 a.m. Some of those locations, like maybe a third of them, are hard no. We cannot stop what we're doing with lunch and unload you. 2/3 of the time, if I'm there during their lunch break, they say, okay, no problem. We'll go ahead and unload you. That's if I'm there during the 2 o'clock hour. Anyway, so it was her last day. Anyway, so I was assigned Greenville twice, 2 Greenville locations, and then Taylor's, and then the Sam's Club in Snellville. I do not like that Snellville location. Anyway, I got the DC about 6 p.m. and to Greenville just after 8 p.m. They were repaving the truck route there at the first Greenville location, so you couldn't drive in and drive to the far side of the building like you normally could. You pull in the regular way and then drive on the side of the building to get to the back. Instead, you had to kind of drive around the parking lot a little bit, which is a bit annoying, but we were able to do it. And luckily, cars are pretty intimidated by trucks. If they see a truck, they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to back up and give this truck a wide, let them make a wide turn, which is nice when they are courteous like that. If not, I always let them have the benefit of the doubt. I always stop and wait for them to move. And as soon as they move, I'll take the turn. And if a car pulls up into that spot, as soon as the car moves that I need to be moved so I can take that spot, I start to move out. Sometimes cars will see me and they know in advance that I'm there and they'll move out of the way. Sometimes they're still driving up and it's only when they see me blocking their path, they're like, oh, yikes, and then they back up. Either way. I don't know why my nose is suddenly itchy now that I'm recording. Anyway, so I got there. We were unloaded in like 30 minutes, and then I got to the second Greenville location by 9:20 and took 10 minutes to clear the dock. Because on the inside, once you get inside, sometimes the dock, the door that is open up to go to the trailer, sometimes that's full. And so they'll have to move stuff out of the way. I'll have like a pallet of water or something sitting on it or some other junk. And so anyway, they had to clear that off and it took like 10 minutes to clear. And then, I was out in like 20 minutes, but the parking lot construction is it's so tight there. It's very, very tight. You have to wiggle your way in there and then you have to back in certain angles. And anyway, it wasn't a big deal. You can do it. Taylor's was also fast. They're usually pretty good. Got in the door and I was out again in 20 minutes, which is nice. So got back to the DC just after 12:30. And because I was there 3.5 hours before the Sam's Club opened, they said, oh, you have some time, don't you? And I said, yes. So I was reassigned Lawrenceville Walmart that I hadn't been to before. It's on 317 in Sugarloaf Parkway. And then I was assigned a second. I think I was assigned a second stop. Anyway, I got there at about 2:05. So by the time I got my paperwork and I got the trailer dropped off and picked up and got the paperwork and got out and down there to Lawrenceville in the middle of the night, it was 2:05. And they were at lunch. This is not the night I had a second load. They were at lunch. So the leads did not want to unload me. So they called a guy that said that they would, would meet me in the dock. And luckily that was good. They were at lunch, but they were able to still accommodate me. Somebody was there. They also had an older woman who was the runner. She had a good attitude. She showed up and was trying to manually use the pallet jack and pull some stuff off, but she just did not have enough meat on her, not enough strength. Once it was on a flat surface, she could jack the thing up and move it, but she didn't really have enough strength to pull it off of the truck because, you have to kind of get it up, push it up and over the dock leveler and pull it at a different angle. Anyway, she was nice. Anyway, so the person came to pull and then pass it off to her, and she ran. It was about half an hour later or so that a woman with a bad attitude showed up. The first lady was kind of pulling and stuff like that. But this lady with a bad attitude showed up, and she had the electric pallet jack information or certification. So she showed up, and she was just like complaining, why do I got to move? You know, why do they do this and why do they do that? And anyway, it's like, all right, whatever. So anyway, it took nearly an hour for all this stuff to be done, and I was out just after 3 a.m. Okay, so I was mistaken. This was the location that I had a Sam's Club at also after this. So I called the office and I wanted to find out, this was a Sam's Club in Morrow. I've been there in the past. If I've shown up there after about 3:15, 3:30, sometimes there's another trailer there, including one from Martin. So I called the office asking if the other Martin trailer I assumed was going to be going there, because I only had a few pallets there to unload. I knew there was going to be another trailer coming after me, so I called the office and I said, "Hey, is the other trailer on their way? Has it been dispatched?" And they said yes, but like 5 minutes ago. So they just gave him his paperwork. He's still probably connecting up, pre-tripping his truck. And then he has to get out of there, and I was already on the move. So I was like, "All right, good. I'll get there first." So anyway, that gave me hope. Anyway, I arrived at Morrow's Sam's Club just before 4 a.m. Although the GPS said it was 65 miles away. I'm not sure which direction the GPS was routing me. But as soon as I ignored it and went on 285 around, 285 towards 78 and then around that way, passing 675 and then turning off on 75 south. When I went that way, the GPS shortened the distance. So I guess it wanted me to go the opposite direction around 285, which I think is what it did a long time ago. The very first week I started with Martin, when it routed me, in my opinion, the wrong way, but I still followed it because they said follow the GPS. So it was longer, and it ended up routing me into a way that had more traffic at that time. And so that's when I got caught on my very first Friday, basically, working for Martin. I got stuck picking up from Niagara after sitting through 4 hours of traffic. Anyway, I ignored it this time, did what I was thinking that I wanted to do. The OmniTrack's automatically rerouted, and it shortened the route, which was fine, which was nice. Even though it cuts in on my miles a little bit, I still got there just before 4 a.m. and no one was there. So basically, another thing that I deviated from, which the GPS always tells you to take exit 335. And then you pull off there, then you wiggle on some back roads. One of those back roads takes you over a bridge that is rated for trucks are not supposed to go over it if you weigh over 27 tons, gross vehicle weight rating. So if I'm ever caught, even if I'm driving a lighter trailer, that would be bad. I'd get cited for that. So that's stupid. So it's also slower. So I drove right past it to exit 333, then turn right off of it, go like 1.25 miles, and then turn right on the road that takes me right in there. So it's avoiding the little back roads. It's avoiding going over a bridge you're not supposed to drive over and that kind of thing. Anyway, I don't care. They let me in the door, and I'll tell you, I only had a few pallets, so I was unloaded within 15 minutes. And this is the first time I'd actually seen the scanning in action, the scanning of the barcodes. I asked if the guy wanted me to use the device. He says, "I got it. I'll do it." So basically, I stood around and watched him. He only had a few pallets because the other trailer was bringing all the rest of their stuff. And he would just go over and scan the barcode and then pull it away. So that didn't take very long. It was just less than half the trailer to unload. Anyway, we were done I said we were done in 15 minutes. He got the loading started in about 15 minutes. So within 15 minutes, we were started because it took a little bit of time to organize and stuff, I guess. It takes him a little while. Anyway, I got out of there about 4:35. Never once saw the Martin trailer. This was surprising because I was expecting the other truck to be there, or the other trailer to be there by the time I was done. But no, he hadn't even arrived yet. I guess he was caught by rush hour traffic. I mean, I was expected to get caught in the rush hour traffic and having that be something I'd have to deal with. But no, that was nice. So I didn't have to worry about that. All right, Tuesday, I got up about 4 hours into my rest. But I woke up just fine. It was around 2 p.m. I stayed in bed but was awake, so went in early, was pre-tripped and ready by 4:30. Load wasn't ready until 5:45 though. Odd for a load that had to be off the yard basically in the late 5 o'clock hour, which they give you an hour leeway. It's kind of weird for that to be loaded at 5:45, and that's when the load has to be finished. Then they have to close and lock and seal the trailer, and that's when they say the load is done. That's when the paperwork can be given to me. So as soon as that happens, I usually have to go and find a yard jockey and have them pull out the trailer just a little bit. And that's what I ended up doing. So anyway, it's really weird. But anyway, so that was good. I was assigned Lawrenceville and Norcross, and then Hartwell and Greenwood times 2. I found the yard jockey and pulled out my trailer, hooked it, fueled it up, and hit the road by 6 p.m. So it wasn't that long. Once I got the paperwork, it was just a matter of entering it in there. The OmniTrax had already had everything put in there already.
Please stay to command.
It's because I say the OmniTrax word. I'm sure that's what it is, because it did the same thing before. Shut up. No.
I didn't get that. Please stay to command.
No. Stop. What command does it want? Turn off. Stop. Shut up.
Would you like to continue?
No.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Off. Anyway. Okay. Since I had already put stuff into the machine, because in the app, in the Martin app, we see all the load information, the trip information. It's just easier to see it on the paper. So, I'd already entered it all in there. So all I had to do was just put in the times once I got assigned the load, the ETA for me arriving to the store. And then as soon as I did that, I already had the address and everything entered. So it was as simple as fueling up and getting off the yard. Going to hook the trailer, pre-tripping it, fueling up, and getting off the yard. It didn't take very long. I arrived in Lawrenceville just after 7 p.m. and after 10 minutes, I ran around. Nobody was in the loading dock. Took a few minutes for me to find someone that would unload me and a few more minutes to get going. Luckily, he unloaded me to the dock since he was alone. He didn't bother running each and every pallet. And so anyway, I was out at 7:15, which was 7:50, I should say. So I was there for 50 minutes, which I was happy that he unloaded me to the dock. Because once I'm unloaded to the dock, they can pull, he can wrangle in people. I think by the time I was done, he had somebody running for him, or at least starting to. I arrived at the Norcross store at about 8:10 and was surprised that someone opened the door, and it was the same guy started to unload me within a couple of minutes. Normally, the guy that opens the door is on the GM side, and they are stuck to the GM side. This time, the guy was like, "What you got?" I said, "Meat and produce." He says, "I'll be right there." And he was walking 50 feet behind me. He got there, opened up the door. Anyway, very surprising for this location because I've been there in the past. They've been extremely disorganized up to slow and inexperienced. So anyway, I was out in 35 minutes. Got back to the DC around 9:45, but called on the way and my load wasn't ready. The office then changed me to Central, Easley, and Greenville, which was the first load I was actually sent. I was sent that load in the middle of the night. When I woke up and first looked at my phone, that was the load that I was sent. And then for whatever reason, it was changed over to this other load, the one that I would just had to abandon, or the one that I wasn't ready yet. Now, that meant I lost about 23 miles because originally it was added on me, and the load that they just took off of me was 23 miles farther. But anyway, it is what it is, I guess. I was out of the DC by 10:15. Arrived in Easley just before 1:30 and the door was open, so I went straight in, had to clear the dock, but was unloading within moments, and I was out by 2 a.m. Really was hoping the last stop was not at lunch. Actually, I looked at the wrong note. I'm sorry. The very first stop was Central, and I got there at 12:30, and it took a few minutes to let me in. I was out in 30 minutes, though. Older man was unloading me, was a former driver, normal truck driver. And his career basically ended, he said, when he was ticketed for driving a flatbed recklessly. I said, "What were you doing?" He says he was just driving it fast and taking turns fast, but it was deemed as driving recklessly by the police officer, which I can imagine with a flatbed. You're supposed to take turns, a right turn no faster than 10 to 12 miles per hour, and a left turn no faster than 16 miles an hour. And so if he was taking turns too fast, then that would be bad. Anyway, upon leaving there, the Omnitrax, great, I said the word.
Hi, please stay to command.
I need to stop saying the word. Why does it respond now? It's never responded to my voice before. But it's just like saying, Alexa.
Would you like to continue?
No. Goodbye. Goodbye. Shut up. Stop. End. Terminate.
Goodbye.
Okay. Anyway, it had frozen up and had to restart. So anyway, I arrived in Easley just before 1:30. This is what I said before, and the door was open, so I went straight in, had to clear the dock, and was unloading within a few minutes, and I was out by 2 a.m., really hoping the last stop was done at lunch. I arrived at that stop only 10 minutes later, and since they did not open the door immediately, I ran around. There's a lady was working in the front of the store. She radioed somebody and 2 associates were at the dock and ready to unload within a couple of moments. And I got out of there by 2:40, which was awesome. So yeah, that was a good day. Wednesday, I got good rest and went in early since I saw my first stop was Lawrenceville, Clayton, Franklin, and my second stop was Monroe, Covington. All of these were Walmarts that were going to be open 24 hours. So I was like, awesome. So I went ahead in, hoping that I could pick up the trailer first and early. I arrived at 4:30 and was and was on the road just after 5:15. Okay, so I arrived to the Lawrenceville Neighborhood Market, which is the location that always loads outside, and they were moving quickly. So only 6 pallets. There were 4 produce, but we had to move 6 others out of the way to get to their last 2 meat. So we had to kind of play Tetris. That means pulling out 3 and then moving and then clearing out the pallets behind there and then shifting everything over and then pulling. Sometimes you can get away with that. Sometimes you can't. Depends on if the DC loads. Because in the back of a trailer, in case you don't know, a trailer is like 8.5 feet wide. But on the inside, it's only usable about 8 feet. So if you were to put 2 pallets side by side that were 4 feet, the pallets are 4 foot by 3.5. So if they're 4 feet by 4 feet, you jam them together, the loads are going to prevent it from letting 2 on there. So what you have to do is put one this way and one this way. That way the extra 1/2 foot is used for leeway. Then every now and then you'll end up flip-flopping them. So that way you'll line up a few and then you'll end up lining up a few this way. And that's how you're able to get 13 deep. There goes the reefer turning itself on again to build up the temperature. Luckily we were able to play Tetris and only pull off a few of the pallets and then shift them over. And this guy was very good at Tetris, I must say. So the good thing is that by shifting things around the way it was in this first stop, having to go back a few pallets, the next 2 stops were going to be straight pulls. They could just pull straight off the produce and then the meat, and then the next location was going to pull, the last location was going to be pulling the meat, then the produce, and that was nice. So since the DC loaded it and everything like that, and we were able to shift around and stuff like that, I was able to get out of there by 6:50, which was nice. I drove down a little bit south, got on Pleasant Hill Road, just beyond Ronald Reagan Parkway, which is a no truck road, and then was able to go from Pleasant Hill straight up 85 to 985, straight on up there, and I arrived in Clayton just after 8:30, and they were on the ball. I was out in 20 minutes, and I was to Franklin by 9:30, and then we were also on the ball, and so I was out by 10 p.m. I love the North Georgia Mountain Stores. They are very on the ball and very efficient most of the time. Okay, got back to the DC and it was about 12:30. Next load was not ready, so I was reassigned 2 Snellville stores that were both 24-hour stores, including the one that never answers the door and takes forever to get moving. I've had a bad experience there, but luckily it wasn't an issue. I was on my way there. Okay, here is where I need. On my way there, I gotta stop for a second. I've mentioned in the past that Martin is cracking down on drivers driving through red lights and stop signs. I don't want to ever do that anyway, just on general principle. But on my way to that neighborhood market, I was in Snellville, going down a hill ever so slightly. Speed limit, I think at that point was 45 or 50 miles an hour. I was going the speed limit because I had my cruise control set. The light changed yellow, right? You know how you're approaching a traffic light and you're thinking your mind, point of no return is coming up. I'll hit the brakes now. But as soon as I pass that point of no return, that's when I'm not going to stop. As I was approaching this, I'm like, nope. Point of no return. The light turns yellow instantly. I'm in cruise control. I tap the brake and I'm thinking about putting on the brake really aggressively. And because the trailer is fully loaded, I say to myself, no, it's not going to stop going down the hill the way it is slightly. And at the speed I'm going, it's probably going to shift the entire thing. I'm probably not going to be able to stop and I'll end up in the intersection stopped. So I decided instead, I processed this all instantly, just tapped the brake real quick and then decided no, and I quickly jammed on the gas, the throttle to continue forward. Now, companies love to tell you things like, at 60 miles an hour, 1 second is 300 feet. The light changed from yellow to red when it was, I originally was thinking it was closer to 10 feet, but after replaying it in my mind, since you see out a bit of distance in front of you, it was probably closer to 30 feet. But still, at 60 miles an hour, 300 feet, I'm going, let's say 45 miles an hour, 30 feet. We're less than a quarter of a second. But still, that technically counts as running a red light. Even though the light was a full yellow. I mean, it was not like a really fast yellow. It was a regular length yellow. But it was literally right after I hit that point of no return. I said, nope. Now, I'd stop. If I slammed on the brakes now and put them on really aggressively, the thing would go doo-dunk. And anyway, I would end up probably stopped 10, 15 feet into the intersection and then either having to back up or continuing forward at that point with the other cars on the other side looking at me. Well, this is in the middle of the night. So I was like, I'm going to go on through. And the light turned yellow when I had 30 feet in front of me. So every example the company has given us about people running red lights, it's like red for 10 seconds and the truck is just approaching it and blasting through the light. Or there's not a yield, they're just going straight into the right turn and then turning right, even though it's a stop sign there. Or there is a line and it doesn't say yield. Whatever the case may be, it's always very obvious that they should stop. It's not like the light just changed and then they're going to go and they go through. So I'm hoping Martin doesn't fire me for this. If they are really strict about their red light stop sign policy, they will. So there is a possibility for less than a quarter of a second, I could be fired from Martin. And I know what you may be thinking. In the past, I've said, I'm leaving Martin. I'm going to be out of here. I can't imagine myself being there by Thanksgiving. That is still true. As I transition into weekends, in about 4 or 5 weeks, I'm going to start looking for another job again. Right now, I'm working weekends. The money is going to be good from the pay bump from working weekends, so I'm going to stick with it. Also, I have a friend coming in town. I have always Thanksgiving weekend is also my birthday weekend. So, because my birthday is the very first day of December, and Thanksgiving 2024. My birthday falls on a Sunday. Now, I don't celebrate it, but my family does. So anytime Thanksgiving, what we always try to do is schedule Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, Saturday and Sunday, all for like a family vacation. We usually will try to do something during that time frame. I have a friend coming in from out of town. It ends up being that is my Tuesday through Friday. So I've asked for that time off, like 3 months in advance. We'll see if they accept it. If they don't, well, hopefully I'll be with another company by then. Anyway. So let's hope Especially, I mean, it would just be the way things are if I'm actually fired for a quarter of a second. It would just be, and plus the fact that I'm just getting into the weekends now and the pay is going to be premium, it would be my luck that I'd be fired for a quarter of a second, for less than a quarter of a second, because it would be less than, because it was about 30 feet. Again, like I said, it seemed like it was about 10 because I was watching it, and the second that light changed, I glanced at where the line was, and it was down pretty much at the hood level. In reality, it was probably closer to 30 feet, even though I think it was, I see it in my mind as being 10 feet away. Let's call it 30. Because normally I'll stop and a car in front of me is about 30 feet in front of me. I don't think it was quite that far. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see what happens. So my second guess, if I didn't tap the brake real quick before I put it back on, I wonder if I would have gone over the line fine. But I wonder if that's second guessing it, saying, should I brake? Brake, no, accelerate. I wonder if that slowed me down just enough to cause me to get fired. We will see. Time will tell. So anyway, I arrived at my nemesis Snellville store at about just before 1:40. And I tell you, I rang the doorbell in the back and waited literally 1 minute. They have almost never opened up that door for me. So I didn't want to chance it and have them suddenly go to lunch. So I ran around the store as fast as I could. I went in the front and started telling everybody I could, meat and produce, meat and produce, meat and produce. I'm nice about it, obviously. And and somebody at the front, I guess, radioed back and said, okay, she'll meet you in the back. And that was nice. Remember how I was there that time that they did not send a manager back to me to unlock the door, and I was there about an hour before the lady came in at 4 o'clock, actually late. And she opened up the door and threw the management under the bus, saying, Isaiah and Kelly are the two managers. Well, Kelly actually was right in front of me as I got to the loading dock. And she was on the ball. She unlocked the door with the key and started pulling. She was very nice. She was very fast. I was out of there about 20 minutes later. I mean, it was barely after 2. So I got there just before 1:40, rang the doorbell, and by the time I ran around and she got back to the dock, we opened it up and she started pulling. I was out of there in like 20 minutes. She pulled things off and she had already wrangled in people to run for her. I guess luxury of having a manager. So she actually pulled and then lined it up and then pulled again and lined it up. So anyway, I arrived at the second Snellville store at 2:25 a.m. and rang the doorbell. After a few minutes, I ran around. They weren't at lunch, but took a few minutes to get moving. The other half of the trailer was unloaded without an issue, and although it was a slow pallet jack, I was still out of there by 3 a.m., which was awesome. Now is where it gets fun. My Thursday. I slept well, even though it was only about 5 hours, and I got up around 3 p.m. and saw that I had a load that was scheduled to leave the yard at 10:09 p.m. That's really late for me. It was one load about 400 miles. Anyway, I called the office and said, the last stop is a neighborhood market. It's a 4 a.m. store, right? And they said, yes. And I'm like, okay, but you're sending me out. I come in at 6, and this load isn't supposed to be off the yard until like 10. And if my last stop is a neighborhood market, I'll still get there early. And they said, well, here's the thing. We are right now, that day, I was starting on a Saturday. It was going to end Sunday morning. The day before Labor Day is officially when that shift would end. And they said, because the stores this is Labor Day weekend, the loads are really screwy. People normally don't like to drive on the weekends, and they might have had some call outs or something like that. But the loads were also really weird from Walmart. So Walmart was sending out on weird loads. And they said, yeah, they're doing some really weird things. And then it's taking a little bit of extra time to load up the trailers. So they said, that is your load. And then I looked at the paper, the actual app, and came to find out this Walmart store has a noise ordinance. I run into this one time in the past, and the noise ordinance is a 6 a.m. So you can't pull into the loading dock area because although this neighborhood market was there before the houses behind it, the houses moved in and said, we don't like hearing the trucks. So they complained, got a noise ordinance. So trucks are not allowed to be there between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. So I called the office again and said, hey, that neighborhood market isn't just a 4 a.m. store in the Augusta area, it's a 6 a.m. store. And they said, that's your load. So I said, all right, fine, change my PTA to 7 p.m. instead. They said, okay. Anyway, so I was basically leaving Georgia that day, going to go to Statesboro, 2 different stores, and then wait at that Augusta location. This Augusta location. And I'll actually show you here at the end. But anyway, I tell you, because the last store was a 6 a.m. store, and because I was leaving at 7, I wasn't going to rush tonight, or last night. I just decided I was going to take my sweet time. Time was going to be what it was. It was my only load for the night. It was only 400 miles, and I was going to be doing waiting anyway. So why bother rushing? So anyway, I'd just be waiting longer at the noise ordinance store if I did rush, so why bother? Anyway, stopped on the way. And it's the first time I've ever, since working at Martin, stopped on the way to a store. I stopped at a Pilot. That was the one off of exit 114. And because we're in Driver's Appreciation Month, and this was just right before that, the app started to show free drinks and started to show free and discounted snacks. So I said, you know what, I'm going to stop by there and see what all I can get, because usually the free ones will go really fast at the Pilots. I luckily was able to get in there, and I got all the rest of the snacks and stuff that was going to be expiring in one day, like that night. So anyway, took my time, got to Statesboro, just before 11:30 p.m. Delayed a few minutes, I was delayed a few minutes because once I finally got in there, because they had a pallet of mayonnaise and mustard, and the plastic had broken off the side, and so all those containers fell. Now this store was very, very heavily staffed, so they were all joking and laughing and just loading up, and they got it moved on and out of the way really, really quickly. It did have to be restacked. There goes the reefer turning itself off, and then they were able to clear off. And it was actually officially at the space between my dock and the next dock, but it was also on the way to the coolers, so they wouldn't have been able to line anything up. So they were stacking up the mayo and mustard and cleared out that spot. Anyway, I didn't care. It was fine. Delay me all you really want. That night was shot anyway, because of the 6 a.m. store. Unload went smoothly, and I was out just after midnight. I arrived at the Statesboro neighborhood market around 12:20, and had to run around because they weren't opening the door. And despite the slow unload, I was still done by 1. It was only a few pallets there, so it wasn't a big deal. The guy that works there, he was really nice. He's a fellow Gen X guy, so we were able to have some good conversations. Anyway, not many delays tonight. It's like, why did it have to happen tonight that I didn't have very many delays? Anyway, so by the time I got to the neighborhood market, it was a new month, so I went ahead and started the Pilot, pushed for points, got 51 gallons, because I had intentionally not filled up the past, day or two, so that way I would be low. I filled up for 51 gallons, and then went in and grabbed drinks and stuff like that again, due to the Driver's Appreciation Week. Got to the neighborhood market. It was just after 2:30 a.m. and had to sit and wait for 3.5 hours before the noise ordinance ended. Now, here's something interesting. When you go onto the machine, I'm not going to say the word. When you go in there, it says arrived detected. So it detects that you're by GPS at the location, and sometimes has a delay. If you say, yes, I've arrived, it starts your timer as to you've arrived at the location. If I'm here before 6 a.m., it would show up as early arrival, and then the company is fine, the same as they would be if I were late. I thought it was if you submitted the workflow that breaks down your times and it has all the information in there. I was mistaken. So when it popped up, I was actually at the Pilot, which is not too far away from here, and it said arrival detected. I'm like, sure, fine, whatever, and I hit OK. And little did I realize that by me doing that, I was costing the company money. So I stopped. I recorded the episode of Alley Docked that you saw last week, and in the middle of that, I was actually called by the office and told, why'd you submit your, say you had arrived? I said, well, I thought it was the paperwork. She says, no, it's when you click arrive. I'm like, oh, yikes. She said, I'm removing it. So that way you'll have to resubmit. I'm like, fine, I'll resubmit it after 6 a.m. So I felt bad about that. But anyway, she caught it and was able to remove it. So that was good. At exactly 5:59, I moved the cones. At exactly 6 a.m., I moved into the dock, backed in, and the guy had the door opened within a minute, and he was on the ball. I told him I had 5 pallets to drop off. He said, that's it? I said, that's it. And so I said, I'll be out of here in 10 minutes. He said, yeah, buddy. So anyway, it was 15. But by the time he opened up the trailer, by the time he temps things and brings out the paper for me to put stickers on and that kind of stuff, it took a few moments, but I was good. So anyway, I was out of there by 6:15. And my favorite truck here has the ability to go 67 miles an hour on the cruise control. It's the only truck I know that's able to do that. One truck I've driven is able to get to 68 miles per hour, but it's a short burst. It's a passing mode. So I can push the button and it will accelerate up to 68. But after about 3 minutes, it will stop. And if I turn around and do it again, it only does it a few times. And then it's like, no, you're at 65 the rest of the night. It only lets you do it so many times. I don't know how many times, but it only lets you do it a few. Believe me, I try to just maintain 68 miles an hour down the speed limit 70 roads of Georgia that are just basically straight lines with very little curves like this, a little bit. Anyway, I got back to the DC, dropped my trailer, and was done with my post trip and stuff like that right at 8:30 a.m. That sucked. But considering that I logged in at about 7:20, it was just before 7:20 p.m. I had worked a 13-hour day, and then a little bit, but still not as bad as it could have been. Anyway, it sucked. I went home and pretty much probably went to bed because I knew that I was going to have a very short 10-hour break because of my hour drive there. Took a shower, brush teeth, go to bed. And then I'd have to wake up and probably check my load a couple of times. Then I would have to get dressed and whatever and go through about an hour of traffic and arrive. Hopefully I'd be arriving early and get my paperwork and start the whole process and then log in at exactly 10 hours. But it ended up not working out that way. I woke up at 3 p.m. I was well rested and saw that I had another load that was very similar to last night. Last night was 2 Statesboro locations in this Augusta neighborhood market. This time it was at the Deansbridge Road, Augusta location, which always makes me run around. And then it's kind of a hit or miss as to if they're organized on the inside or they're not. And then after that, Waynesboro, which I've been to before, and then the same Statesboro as last night, then this neighborhood market 6 a.m. store with the noise ordinance again in Augusta. Yuck. Again. I called the office and it was a long hold time. And then I got disconnected. Then I had called back and then I started off the conversation by saying, is this another crazy night with regards to loads? And I was told, yep. I said, okay, so I have no chance of changing my load. No, it is what it is. Sorry. And I was like, okay, well, either way, it's my Friday. I changed my PTA to 7 p.m. and said I'll be in then. Officially, I could come back in since I finished at 8:30 a.m. when I logged off. Officially, I could log in at 6:30 p.m. I arrived at just before 6:30. By the time I got to the truck and turned it on and logged in as off duty, you always log in on this machine early. That way, it can sync the logs, which takes like 15 minutes. So that way, as I settle in the truck, I go inside, get my paperwork and whatever. It's turning on. It's getting itself up and functional. It takes a few minutes. Anyway. So, I wasn't going to be able to get back to sleep anyway, because by the time I sat on hold and whatever, I was still well rested. So I went on in and, I saw my family and goofed off with them a little bit. I got there to the office by about 6:30. It was a torrential downpour. So I pre-tripped the entire truck in torrential downpour. I just did not care. I was so frustrated. Shirt. This light is a lightweight shirt. It was sticking to me. So yay, wet t-shirt contest. And, went into the office, got my paperwork and then just stood there since I had really no reason after 6:30 p.m. to log in before like 7:30 p.m. Because if I did, I'm just going to be chewing up my hours here. I could do a split. A split would allow me to reset and stuff, or I could use my one time doing extending my schedule to 16 hours as long as I had the drive hours, which I do because I'm basically just sitting here. But I decided I wasn't going to do that. I'm just going to sit around the DC, sat around until 7:26 is the exact time. I was just like stir crazy. I'm like, look, it's later than last night. I had 3 hours after we unloaded from the neighborhood market. And I got back with about an hour left on the clock. So I'm going to do the same thing again. So, anyway, I logged in. I was off the yard by 7:45. I arrived at the Deansbridge Road location in Augusta at about 9:50, rang the doorbell, and after a few minutes, I ran around, started telling every associate I saw, hey, I'm eating produce. And they were like, oh, okay, we'll send somebody back. And they did. By about 10:05, I was being unloaded. So it took about 15 minutes after, I went to the back door, rang the doorbell, ran around. Not terrible. But it was a lot quicker than it could be, a lot quicker than it was the very first time I was there. Anyway, so tonight was a decent night. Of course it was. I had all the time in the world to kill. So next time I go there, I'm going to be in a rush and they're going to be like, oh yeah, let's just twiddle our thumbs and waste all the time in the world tonight. Anyway. It did take a while to get a runner, but it was 9 pallets and, I was out by about 10:40. So I guess you could say it was about 15 minutes total. By the time I ran around, they got going and pulled the stuff, and they had to shift around some stuff on the trailer because he had to move the produce from the next location so that way he could get to his meat anyway. So I mean, they didn't really waste time. There's just a lot of moving and stuff. So anyway, got to Waynesboro at 11:15, and they promptly opened the door. I was unloaded and back in the truck 20 minutes later. Awesome. Any other time it would have been awesome. I arrived at the Statesboro neighborhood market at 12:45 and had to run around. The dude was the same guy there as last night. He's a Gen X guy. He was taking the time tonight, but you know what? I didn't care. He had to reorganize and shift things around inside the trailer or inside the cooler, and I didn't care because I had all the time in the world to kill. I was only there for 7 pallets, and I had 90 miles ahead of me to get to this location here. It was like 5 hours. It would have been a 5 hour. I had 5 hours to kill. So who cares, right? So because he's a fellow Gen Xer, we had a good conversation about all kinds of good old days things. We talked about, there was pallets of Chef Boyardee beefaroni, and I said, oh, I remember the 40 years ago, the commercial, thank goodness for Chef Boyardee. And we started talking about that. And he says, oh, that was he says, that's my creature comfort food. Anytime I'm sick, I'll just grab that and eat it straight out of the can. I'm like, I've never been that bold. I always have to warm the stuff up. Anyway, had a nice little conversation. But anyway, so I got out of there, dropped by a pilot on the way, which is just right around the corner. It's like 3/4 of a mile. I would have stayed there in the park, in their spaces, but they're always very full and they have other people creating their own spaces nearby. So I went inside, bought something, and then refilled my water bottle. So that's the reason why it's full right now. And it's sweating. Oh, look at that. I usually use the sweat on the top of there to kind of wash off my hands just a little bit. Anyway, I'll take a big swig of that, but not on camera. I'm almost done with this video anyway. I'll drink it as soon as I am done with this video. Unlike last night, though, where I parked the truck, like you pull into this neighborhood market this way and you're facing over there. Actually, you know what? I'll just show you. That over there is the entrance. You see where the parking lot, not the parking lot, the traffic light is up there? That traffic light, and I stopped there along this little area here where it says stop, because it's 2 lanes wide and people could easily see me parked there with my lights on, and then they pulled up in the neighborhood market that way. Over here, you can tell that is where the cones are. So the cones are blocking the way, and there's a sign over there farther to the right. I don't know if you can see it because I can't really see the screen. Let me see if I can actually turn the screen on. Yeah, you can barely see it. It is right there. That is the sign that says no trucks back here allowed until 6:15 is what it says, but the noise ordinance officially ends at 6 o'clock. So that's the reason why I moved things out. All those cones in the way that are up in there, those will be moved. And this neighborhood market has employees moving around in the parking lot pretty much all night. So that is where I am right now. And it is my Friday. Oh, what time is it right now? 4:42 a.m. I have an hour and 18 minutes to kill. I don't expect there to be any kind of an issue tonight. If there is, I will make note of it for next week. But if nothing else, what I will assume is I will move those. I will pull in there at exactly 6 a.m. I'll back up in there. I'll ring the doorbell. If they don't open the door within a few minutes, I will run around. And I will make sure I'm unloaded within, let's say, 20 minutes, because last night was 5 pallets. Tonight there is 6. And because it's a holiday, I will hit the road and head straight on back, and I'll stop at the Pilot in Madison at exit 114 and fuel up, because today is my Friday and you got to leave the truck fueled up all the way. And once you do that, we'll be good. If there is any delay, traffic-wise, anything on the interstate or something like that, I will be stopped on the interstate. And if I'm stopped on the interstate for any reason, I see it's going to be an issue, I will go into the device, and I will do a macro 56, I believe it is, and I will request a split. Because as of right now,
you have 4 hours and 43 minutes of remaining drive time.
Okay. I'll look at my clock. Oh, no, wait, is the summary? Yes, it's the summary. So let me show you this. So, oh, there goes the reefer again. So you can see the 8-hour break is right there. 11 hours drive time. Oh, come on now. Go back to summary. Okay, so you can see right here, I have 5 hours and 22 total minutes left. My 14-hour clock only has 4 hours and 43 minutes left, so technically that is the amount of time I have left in my day. If I do a split, I will officially reset my 14-hour clock, but not the 11-hour drive clock. So I have been logged off at this point 1 hour and 17 minutes. So I will complete a 2-hour split officially as soon as I start up the truck and move back there. So I will have my drive time available. And if I'm delayed at all on the interstate, I will call this a split. You could do a split and call it sleeper berth or off duty. It doesn't matter. Technically, I guess if it's called sleeper berth, you're supposed to be in the sleeper berth. But if you're off duty, you could be sitting in this chair for all, just goofing off like what I'm doing right now. It's still recreational activity. So regardless, I'll make sure I get back. I don't think it would take me over 4 hours and 43 minutes to go 100 miles back to the DC. How many miles is it here? I'll start the GPS, and this is what's going to suck. I should just show you this, actually. Show you how slow this thing is. Okay? So, if I go over here, this is the Walmart location, that the DC location. Get route.
Asking for route.
Asking for route. It is going to be doing this for 2 to 3 minutes. That is the same time it always does. You will hear it say, building route here in a second. And that's when it is officially going to tell me all my details. Until then, it's thinking. What about? I have no idea. Omnitrack's glitched again tonight. I don't know what the different colors mean, but see how this is blue? When that's blue and the exclamation mark up here is blue, it shows auto arrival detected, task change, and whatever else. It throws errors. Delete all, fine. Those are the alerts. And now this goes green. See that? It's green. Most of the time, though, when you drive, this thing is yellow. Or orange, actually. I have no idea what the different colors mean. Not like I really care, though. Because I'll be moving over to platform science before the end of the year. Ideally, in a perfect world, that's what Martin wants us to do. So it won't be very much longer. And you see this thing is still building the route. Anyway. So 4 hours and 43 minutes should be good for me to go, like, what is that, 110 miles? I could drive it in less than 2 hours. By the time I stop at the pilot and do a 10-minute fuel up or whatever, I should...
Building route.
There it goes. Building route now. And now it's set.
265 feet. Turn left to South Blay Road.
All right, so you can see 116 miles. I should be able to go 116 miles in 4 hours and 43 minutes. So if I call this a split, I'll be able to get home. And then I'll be off for 2 days anyway. My clock will reset. So regardless, I'll be good. So anyway, that's the latest. That's what's going on right now. I guess that's it. Yeah. So if you don't hear anything more about this location, or about, you know, if I don't start off next week's video with a tale of this, then just know all there is really to know is that I got in there, got unloaded, got back to the DC, and then went off duty. Probably by like 9 a.m. or whatever. I'll be off. 9 a.m. on Labor Day. Unless there's some sort of a Labor Day. Ooh, I should look it up just to see if there's a Labor Day parade or something going on in Monroe. Or Madison, rather. Monroe. Because if so, I'll need to take back roads over to Athens and then go around the Loop 10 there. I'll need to look that up, so I'll do that as soon as I'm done here. Hopefully no news is good news, though, and there won't be any issues. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for watching.